Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode of Cedarbrook Park Zoo, we build a new home for the quokka, the first of our oceanic DLC animals. Now, I've always loved when Frontier releases new DLC. The additional build pieces, animals, and maps are always a welcome change. Now, thankfully, this actually worked in our favor as we had just recently started building Cedarbrook Park Zoo. Now, speaking of Cedarbrook Park, we've hit a milestone in that our park is officially self-sufficient. The introduction of the quokka has helped propel the park forward. Now, knowing that this DLC was about to drop, I did plan out a few habitats for this area to host all of our new oceanic animals, and it was a toss-up between starting with the quokka or the kiwi. Now, while the quokka did take first place, I already started planning out for our kiwi to be introduced next, so stay tuned for that episode as well. Now, seeing as we should be working with new build pieces introduced in this DLC, I felt the best place to start would be with our fence. I kinda have the idea of this modern looking zoo, but used the new wood pieces to act as an anchor for our fence. With the colors adjusted to be a tad darker, I was actually pretty happy with how it turned out. It was a quick and easy looking glass fence for our new habitat. Now, you are gonna notice a few things different with this episode today. Right off the bat, we have pretty much the entire build on the speed build, which is really cool. Often I'll cut out a lot of the mistakes that I make, and I do cut out some mistakes for sake of time. Nobody wants to watch a 2-hour long speed video of an entire build, which some of my videos could be that long, even if they were a speed build. But this one actually benefited from a few things. Right off the bat, we built a huge exhibit just recently with our meerkat, and a lot of the pieces that we put in there we actually utilized in this new build. Right off the bat, that helps to save some time. On top of that, they don't need that big of a space. If I'm not mistaken, they're sitting around 250 meters square, so we kind of worked with what we had. Now, with the initial framework of our entire exhibit as it stands right now planned out, and I say that because we made a mistake. We planned for a large habitat, or a larger habitat, and the size that I'd penned out, and in my head the math made sense, but inadvertently we didn't quite hit that. So we do have to go back and change it, and you're gonna see that happen in this episode. But with our initial plan placed out, I went with something a little bit different. And I was doing a little bit of research on some quokka exhibits and habitats, and one of them that I saw, and I can't remember the zoo because there's not a whole lot of photos of a full exhibit, but I saw one, and I love the idea of having this like stone garden separating the path from the habitat barrier, in this case that glass wall, and I really like the way it looks. Mind you, it's a little janky. The front area is too thin. We didn't plan for it initially. It was kind of something that I came up with last minute, but I'm really happy with how it all worked out. Of course, I needed to adjust quite a bit. We had a lot of clipping in the plaster floors, but we made it work. And then I utilized some painting just to kind of cover all that green and hide it all up. And I'm quite happy with how it actually turned out. Now, let's talk foliage, because it's about that time. We got to start working on the foliage for this exhibit. And I remember when I first started playing Planet Zoo and I first started my series for this, I was not very good when it came to foliage. I had a bit of a struggle. It was never ideal. And I'm actually really happy with what we've managed to achieve with this particular build. Of course, I do have to say a lot of this has come from your help. The feedback I've been getting in the comments, the feedback I've been getting in the Discord has really helped me to improve my overall game. And I think we're going to see a whole new level when it comes to foliage work. And I'm actually really happy with how this all came together from a foliage perspective. I think it's probably one of my best works. And if you learn anything from these series, please let it know to keep on trying, keep on practicing, because you'll eventually get to where you need to get to. And you'll be happy with what you've achieved. Now, admittedly, and I did say it earlier, we only measured things once, and the habitat turned out to be a little too small. So thankfully, we did catch it early enough that we could go back. The other thing is we made this amazing water feature. Really happy about it. I was so excited to have a real water feature, and kind of layered it with all these stones. You're going to see it all come together. And sadly, I had to take it out And part of the reason why I had to take it out is our exhibit just wasn't big enough, and they weren't considering this water area as part of their navigatable area. They actually couldn't go into it. And it was really frustrating because I thought I made such a good, water feature. But hey, you live and learn. We did end up taking it out and making it look even better with even more foliage. Who can't say foliage is always going to make the difference within this game. Now, while we quickly build up our habitat, I did want to take a moment to talk about the quokka a little bit more. I've always enjoyed the info that Frontier shares about each animal, and I think it's a great way to learn more about them. In fact, I typically try to learn a bit more about each animal to have a better idea of what to build, and that's what really helps make me make these habitats the way they are. Now, an example of things that I've learned, these little guys are night owls. They're mostly active during the night, and they spend all their days really resting and avoiding the heat. And that makes sense. They're in Australia. It's a very hot environment. Now, we've relocated them to the UK, where it's a tad cooler. So it actually makes sense that we would see them active during the day. But of course, this may not actually be as realistic as we would like it to be, but I think it fits the entire theme of our overall build. Now, on top of this, they aren't very big. Typically, adults reach 54 centimeters or 21 inches in length from head to tail, and that tail takes up most of it. They're actually about 30 centimeters or as much as 12 inches long. So they're not a very big creature, to say the least. Of course, we already know that they call southwestern Australia home, particularly on islands like Rottnest Island and Ball Island. And it's due to these isolated habitats that they've been protected as well as they have been for now. Now, quokkas are part of the marsupial family, meaning that their females have pouches, which are really cool, and they carry their nurse and nurse their young in them, typically birthing maybe one joey at a time. And then quokkas are also pretty adaptive. They have the ability to both climb trees and swim, which is kind of annoying because we built this pool and they didn't want to swim in it. And speaking of climbing trees, to help prevent them from potentially climbing the trees in their habitat, I did go back in and add a skirt to each tree off camera. Surprisingly, they also have the ability to go without water for extended periods, which is really cool. But thankfully, they don't have to worry about that too much, as while we did remove the water feature, we do replace it with a water dish. Again, space is a premium, so we made it work the way it has to be. Sadly, though, the quokka is considered vulnerable due to habitat loss introduced by predators like foxes and cats. Now, various conservation efforts have helped to protect them, which is really cool. And predator control programs, habitat restoration, and educational campaigns are just some of the small initiatives that have helped to save these furry little animals. Now, let's get back to the build. As mentioned, you can see we had to adapt on the fly and create a bigger habitat. I'm quite actually happy with what we've managed to achieve here in terms of overall build. I think with the exception of some of the barriers, it actually ended up working out. Now you are going to notice a little bit of a time skip. There's a few reasons for that. I needed to get the quokka in the actual habitat to see if it was big enough. So we wanted to test it out, and you're seeing the thought process happen on camera. And again, this is where I meant we ended up having to get rid of our water feature because it just wasn't big enough. I ended up utilizing a lot more foliage though to kind of hide that up. And it actually worked out because of the way we had placed our paths and the barrier. We couldn't actually raise the ground back up high enough. So I had a little bit of a dip, which actually makes sense. It adds to that natural barrier. And we've talked about that in the past, where we don't want to necessarily have something that's like a gate or a fence or mesh or anything like that. It just doesn't look that good. So what we do instead is we lower the ground so that it's harder for them to get out. And then we use foliage to kind of prevent them from getting there. Now, you are seeing a little bit of a trick that I picked up from the Discord, which is to place a path down before you place your habitat items. I hate the fact that habitat items actually modify the ground when you place them down. It's such a frustrating aspect, but there's a workaround. You place a path down first, and then you place it on top of the path and delete the path, and it doesn't modify the ground, which is a fantastic idea. And I don't know if that's intended because it should be, but hey, it works out. So we did have to jerry rig an indoor habitat for them as well. They do need their shelter. Didn't really want to have them hanging out outside, and they're not a burrowing creature, so we can't just slap down a burrow and hope for the best. So instead, we made for this kind of really cool little heated area for them to sleep in. We sectioned it off with a glass wall, which is really just going to be for our keepers to utilize so they can kind of observe and work with them and stuff like that. And then again, I used that path idea to ensure that the terrain wasn't modified. Having done all of that, it actually started to come together. Despite the fact that we had to, make things on the fly, it definitely worked out. In fact, this is a perfect example of like having to remodify the door and utilizing more panel parts to just make it all fit in. But it looks really cool. And then even utilizing some of the terrain paint to create these like dirt paths as they walk through, I think it really made a change. And it actually looks really cool considering all of this was done on the fly. I had no plan in mind for how this would come together. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that I put media screens on the back walls here. We do not live in an environment where it's super lush. It's not a grassland. It's not Australia. And I wanted to go for this modern concrete building, but when I put it all down, I was like, some of it just doesn't. Concrete doesn't look good. So I ended up utilizing our Windows media thing that we came up with in a previous episode, which is you just mirror the image back and forth. So you can kind of create a continuous image, and it doesn't like rip or tear or anything like that. And it actually worked out. Now you are going to notice a few things jump forward there, and there's a reason for it. Obviously, you saw we were building and it was kind of twilight out there. We're not playing the Twilight DLC, so it does not make sense. So I ended up leaving it playing, and I kind of built some things at night, but nobody likes to watch a speed build in the dark. So I kind of skipped over a little bit of that. But we did incorporate some of the additional build pieces, like the woven bark walls, and I kind of used that to cover some of the concrete that's guest facing. And I also found these wooden pillars. I love these wooden pillars. They're quite large, so I've had to sink them very far into the ground to make it work out. But they act as like this amazing corner piece for our build, and it adds a little bit of that unique oceanic feel to this entire area. Because again, it's we're not building a new zoo. We're building something in the UK. It's very modern, so it kind of makes sense. Now, speaking of modern, it's time for us to work on the interior backstage area. We don't have a lot of space to work with, but I definitely wanted to fix this hole in the wall where our quokkas will enter into their shelter. And I've built these things in the past. You've seen us build them. I think everybody's built these in the past, in fact. And I wanted to go for something a little different. So it's this gated block wall gate thing. I realize what I just said there. And it's attached to a hub. Now, you could have all the gears out and about and showing, but it's a fairly unique environment in the UK. We're going to see a lot of rain. We're going to see a lot of high temperatures, low temperatures, things like that. So this kind of stuff would rust given time. So instead, we're cheating. And what I did was I actually kind of made this metal box that would have all the gears and stuff like that working, and then just a chain that connects to it. So the chain would lower it, it would have a spool on the inside and lower it down. And then you saw me put some of these red lamps together. And the idea behind it is I want to have something like a heated lamp. So admittedly, they don't like hot temperatures. That's why they're nocturnal animals. But we're in the UK, so it's not going to be very hot. So instead, I went with these heat lamps, and that's what we kind of put together. And we got those heat lamps over their shelter. Now, on top of that, I added a few extra things into their shelter, just some enrichment items. So if we were to ever close it off or anything like that, they would still have some enrichment items while they're hanging it on the inside. And then it was time for us just to flesh out the interior. Now, you've seen this happen before, but you're going to see the entire build process. A lot of this, of course, is going to be items that came from the workshop. And I do want to say I would never have been able to build this myself, but I'm really thankful for everybody who has provided parts and stuff like that. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. For having just a few pieces, it actually worked out really well. Now, I am going to leave it here. We're near the end of the speed build. I think we only have about a minute and a half left, but we are going to do another quick tour because, of course, you need a tour of the entire area. It's not going to be a very big, long one, though, because you guys saw the entire build. But I do want to show some of the final touches that we've made, some of the changes as well we've made after making this video. Now, you are going to notice that this episode is uploading a lot sooner than our normal Tuesday times. And the reason for that is because we're working on the DLC animals. And I think it's really cool to have them out and about and put them out right away. So you're going to see a few episodes come out outside of the regular upload schedule. So it's going to mess with my build schedule, but I'm really excited to bring all this stuff to you. And we will chat soon during this tour. And with our backstage area finally complete, it is time for us to take a look at all of the work we've put together for our habitat. And I think first things first, of course, we have our climate change and education boards, along with a nice little bench so you can kind of sit down and gaze into our exhibit. And then we've added some things. I found these lovely little nets in the new Oceanic pack. So I added some nets in, kind of give it a little bit more of a feel like it's, they've been pulled up to prevent them from climbing, but there used to be nets there kind of idea. And you can also see the skirts. So I've gone with these particular skirts. There's two types of tree skirts, but I actually like these ones. I think it fits well. And we can finally see one of our quokkas. So we have two quokkas. We have Kira and Bam Bam. Both of them come from the Frontier Zoo. And I'd like to think maybe we are in a partnership with Frontier Zoo. We've brought them here so that maybe we can assist with some breeding programs. We have our fantastic path, nothing too special. I did add some floor lights, path lights. So we are gonna have some lights for the, at night when our guests come during the evenings. And you can see our education board. We've made a few changes. I've added in these little poles and like the ropes to kind of go with it, fits with the whole oceanic theme. And I don't know how I feel about this border. I have deleted it, placed it, deleted it again. I kind of like not having it. I keep on flipping and flopping, but I would love your thoughts if you think that this is just maybe a little too much or if it's just enough. I'm leaning towards it's not a good idea. Maybe I should just get rid of it. I love being able to look in, and the quokkas have this funny little quirk. They tend to hide in all the foliage. So if we're lucky, we might see them just hang out where they're kind of hidden away. And the one thing that's not native to their environment, of course, is the buffalo grass. We have quite a bit of buffalo grass down and around, just adding in a little bit of extra fillers. But I'm really happy with how this looked. In fact, I actually changed up the back screens as well. So we have just a forest, and then we have like this lusher dark green over here. And again, you gotta love that foliage. And I love this, this little mushroom that they have there. Probably not a good idea to have mushrooms available for our quokkas to eat, but I think it's a pass for now. We'll take it as it comes. Of course, we've also added a Meet the Residents sign. So I quickly put this together, to be entirely honest with you. I actually kind of like the idea. We have Kira and Bam Bam, and I've set the game so they're going to age 5 times slower. So I expect Kira and Bam Bam to be with us for some time, and we would have some additional facts, maybe about where they came from, some of their offspring, things like that. So I thought this was a really cool little, tidbit of information that we can add over here, and it also uses up some of the space. I agonized over how to use this space. I was putting some props there, and the props didn't really make sense. And I actually like how this sign kind of works out. Of course, I gotta say, it's quite the habitat. I'm really happy with what we have achieved. Maybe that looks like Kira, perhaps, and Bam Bam is somewhere around. Bam Bam is hanging out on the inside. You can kind of see him. He's maybe taking a nap there. We have some open space as well. So I hope, my hope is that we'll have another exhibit right here in the coming few days. You'll see that one pop up shortly. But let's hop over this fence and see if we can hop over it. There we go. We'll take a look at the backstage area. First things first, I've added a ladder, and I found this on the workshop. I did have to modify it a little bit, but I love the idea of having like this ladder here so they can kind of climb up to the roof and do all the maintenance on the roof. I thought that was a nice little touch. And then of course we have our private staff only area, so lots of signs to support that. And then as soon as we come in, we kind of have our like habitat prep area where maybe we would have some foliage. It's all about cleaning and keeping everything orderly. We have some shelving units, so maybe like some crates and stuff like that would kind of hang out right here. We have a nice little computer because of course we are a technology first organization. We would have all of our information digital, not necessarily on paper. We have our little board with some important information. A lot of it is about just the health and safety, enclosure safety, and then knowledge, skills, and competencies, things like that. And then of course we have a fridge with lots of food for us to work with, and then a food prep area. Admittedly, maybe I should extend this table over a little bit, but I was kind of like space was a premium. So I feel like when you come over here, you can kind of like wash your hands and stuff like that. and then you can turn around and you can actually see into our little rest area. I love the idea of having like this little button, so you press the button and then the gate would close, kind of just lock them out so that they would be able to stay inside in the case of like predators out and about, and maybe it's dark at night, we don't want them necessarily be out and unattended, things like that. Of course, because they may be stuck in here for a little bit, we've also added 2 enrichment items, just like a little feeding box and then like a little tennis ball for them to play with. But I'm quite happy with this. Of course, we would, maybe reach over, pick them up, and this is where we would do a lot of our testing and stuff like that. So, maybe they had to take some medicine, or we wanted to, check on the mother, if she was pregnant with a new Joey or anything like that. So we would, bring them in here. We would kind of reach over and pick them up and maybe, administer any tests and whatnot. And then of course we have our little keeper's hut. So each location should have a dedicated keeper's hut. The only downside with this is, of course, this brick wall. Originally, I thought about having the window there, and then I placed the fence instead. I actually liked kind of hiding all the concrete and stuff like that. So you can't see in, and that's okay. But who knows, maybe we'll change that down the road. But this is our exhibit. I think it's for a quick build, I think it turned out really well, and I actually love these rock pieces. So this is also part of the new Oceanic set, and I think this is going to kind of like one of like the key features of this area is going to be like a lot of these rock bases as opposed to wood. So it's a nice little way to like kind of denote that we've moved into a different area, focus on different animals, things like that. But I am super happy with what we've achieved. Of course, always feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, let me know what you think of the build. If you have any tidbits or feedback, ways to improve, I welcome you to provide it, even if it's constructive. Maybe it's tough criticism, but it's constructive, and that's how we grow and improve, and that's what's key. The entire goal of this entire series was always about improving, and I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who's made it this far, because you've definitely helped me to grow and improve, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without your feedback and you guys watching and letting me know what I can improve. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. You are also welcome to join the Discord if you would like. We have our community zoo, we have build challenges ongoing, and I'm really excited about our current build challenge. It is something that I'm going to be not participating in, because I don't want to participate, but I do want to kind of participate in a sense. I will build hopefully something to go along with that whole build challenge as well. Otherwise, if you want to, feel free to subscribe. It does help me out, but if not, that's cool. No pressure at all. Otherwise, I just want to say thank you so much, and ciao for now, everybody.